Listen, I love a good bubble bath, but if a 20-minute soak was the answer to everything, we'd all be thriving, right? Welcome to Your Well Life, the podcast that goes way beyond self-care checklists and into the real work of healing, alignment, and actually feeling alive again. I'm Misha, trauma-informed transformation mentor, holistic health and life coach, and mom of 3, here to inspire you to break free from burnout, reconnect with yourself, and create a life that actually feels like home. And we're not pretending it's all deep and serious 24/7 because real growth, it's sacred, but it's also messy, hilarious, and sometimes best understood through a pop culture analogy. Each week, you'll hear inspiring stories of resilience, soulful conversations about healing, reinvention, optimizing your well-being, and honest insights to help you move from struggle to flow in motherhood, marriage, friendships, career, and beyond. I'm endlessly curious about what makes people tick and thrive, whether it's a breakthrough moment, a hidden grocery cart treasure, or even a Bravo show revelation. Because healing isn't just found in the heavy work, it's woven into the everyday human experience. Real life isn't polished, growth isn't linear, but within the real, raw moments, there's a path forward, and you don't have to walk it alone. Hit subscribe and let's get into it. In today's episode, I am thrilled to sit down with Sara Chizek. She is a grief and sensuality coach, a tantra practitioner, and a marketing expert for mission-driven brands. Since launching her coaching business in 2020, Sara has guided thousands of clients in releasing old stories, emotional baggage, and anything that no longer serves them. Hello, Sara!
Hi.
I'm so excited to see you and to have you here today. Thank you for being here.
Me too. I'm so happy to be here and connect with you.
So I think the last time we actually saw each other was, I don't know, was it like about 4 years ago, like 2021 maybe?
Yeah.
And at that time, I remember when we first connected in a mastermind together, I was really just drawn to you and your energy, no matter whether you were going through something really hard or where you were going through something really incredible. You've just always been so deeply connected to like yourself and to other people in such an authentic way. And I think that at the end of the day, that energy, like I just continue to find myself connected to you because I feel like you have such clean energy and such a beautiful vibration. And then since then, I've watched you move through the world in like just glow with your journey with your partner, your journey into doing other work with your marketing gifts, and also still leveraging your passion for the woman's body and this and no matter what you do, I really just feel like I just watch this woman who's just like glowing, living this soulful, connected life. And I just feel that it's a testament to the work you do in these 3 main areas that I know you for. And so I wanted to bring you on to see if we could explore and chat about these 3 things that have really seemed to serve you.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna cry. I feel so seen by you. Thank you, Misha. Wow.
You're so welcome. Thank you. Your energy is such a gift. And I really
Yours
mean
too.
that. I feel like you've had, I think this is important to name, is I feel like when you've moved through so much in your life, and I feel as though you really have been, you've moved through so much in your life and you've been able to show up in this beautiful way with such clear energy. I feel like because of one of the main tools that I met you in practicing, which was emotional release work. So would you be able to tell the audience about like how you got into that and how it really supported you and supports you?
Yeah, absolutely. When I was definitely numb to most of my emotions, my like all up through my late 20s. So my like main big loss and trauma of my life was the loss of my dad when I was 4. And so my whole life got patched back together really quickly and everything like I went on to check all the boxes, go for the impressive college and impressive career and all those pieces. And there were parts of me that understandably were very hard, like broken inside, but I had a mask over all of it and was just trying to keep it together and do the things. And yeah, it wasn't until I started to intersect with this more spiritual self-development world that I started to learn the tools of emotional release and emotional alchemy and moving through hard emotions. So really letting yourself feel it. And I like to have the more like wider view that like everything in my life does happen for me, and that doesn't mean that we don't get to deeply feel the painful things that happen along the way. If you just move through like everything's for me, there could be an opportunity to bypass the hard stuff in that. And so emotional release and moving through, letting yourself scream and beat a pillow and be like raw and real is such an important part of emotional hygiene. It's like cleaning, it's like the way we brush our teeth and floss our teeth every day. Like it's cleaning out the well of guck that gets accumulated over time, over periods of time. Yeah. And I check
Yeah.
in every day about this stuff. Like right before this podcast, I was like, put on some music and I just let myself shake and move. And I was like, okay, let's get the channel cleared out of the skunk so that I can move into this day with a renewed sense of energy.
Yeah, so let's talk about, because I think two things in there I just want to highlight. And then I want to actually have you, if you don't mind, explain the process, because I think it's foreign to most people. When you mentioned the masking that happens of trying to pretend everything's okay, but you're like dying inside, I think that in and of itself, I think is a sentiment that so many people can resonate
Mm-hmm.
with, especially, or not especially, but I think a lot of my audience are moms, and that's something
Yeah.
that you just feel like you have to like put your face of armor on sometimes and just get through it when
Mm-hmm.
you are just holding so much of your own. And I think that
Yeah.
it's really so helpful to highlight that in your process, what you're going to talk about in a second, or the process that has been helpful to you, is that even those really hard, painful, uncomfortable emotions, when we just attune to them, just like we would if like a friend was upset, we wouldn't be like, you're uncomfortable. We'd hold the person if they're crying or upset. And
Mm-hmm.
even if it's uncomfortable, they're going to,
Mm-hmm.
when we do that, it is what actually allows it to dislodge and move through. And
Yes.
I feel like that piece, I think people have a fear of
Mm-hmm.
feeling into it, because, and so I would love for you to talk about how this process actually gives a really supportive container and guides you through a process that really helps to move that stuck energy through and then alchemize it and put you back into a more like light state.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my biggest fear was that, oh God, if I let the grief that's accumulated for, it was like 30 years at the time, if I let that all be felt, that I would completely
Break.
unravel this life that I had created. It felt like either that
Mm.
or the life. And so definitely relate to feeling like an endless pit that you could pull back the door on and then like never come back from. But what I actually find with both myself and I work with clients in one-on-one like body work is that when you find a tender spot that has emotions and maybe some grief comes from it, and you allow that piece to actually feel, like to feel deeply what it is that is there and that's alive, the energy always moves. It's like a wave, like it always moves. So even if there is like a down energy, right, where like we go into the whatever is hurting and in pain, it's like we can't get stuck there forever. The energy always moves up again, and that's just how energetics work. Like you don't get caught in the ness of it forever. And so there's so many ways to bring in that alchemy, but it's I feel like it's a false it's a false notion that you're gonna get stuck in it.
Yeah, I think I heard, I don't know, do you know who Justin Patrick Pierce is? Okay, I don't know him
Yeah,
personally, but I
I do his monthly couples container with my
stop.
partner, him in
Oh,
London.
I wanted to go on
They're
one of those.
amazing.
I love his work, their work. Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard him say this so beautifully in something where he said, emotions are like, you don't want to get stuck at one end of the piano. You want to be able to play all of the notes of the piano.
Yes.
And when you get stuck in one end of the piano, that's actually when it's unhealthy. You actually want to feel the full range and learn to pendulate in that. And I think that's something we forget, that it's part of the human experience to feel fully, and it's beautiful. And when we can allow ourselves to do that, to your point, we come back like a wave. But it's, in fact, and someone who is equally as, I guess, who's very much in the work as well, I feel like it's still, even for myself, I need to remind myself, because I even know this morning I'm dealing with something with a parent of mine that's very triggering and brings up so much. And I haven't been able to look at the email. I just can't even look at it for like however long. And then this morning I was like, had to have like my husband like pull it up. I had to like hold myself. I had like, it was like a whole thing, because I had so much fear around the feeling. And at the end, yes, I moved through it, but it's still such a normal self-protection thing for us to be like, I don't want to freak the hell
Yeah.
out of.
Totally. It's self-preservation at its finest.
Yeah.
There's parts of our brain that are literally just here to keep us alive.
Yeah. Okay, so the next
Yeah.
thing I actually want to go into with you is the intimacy work, because I know I'm jumping around here, but you did mention, when we mentioned London Patrick Pierce, and London Angel Winters.
Yes.
I'm so intrigued by the fact that you and your part, are you husband and wife,
We're
right?
fiancés. Yeah.
Fiance, sorry, I lost
We're
track.
engaged. We're like celebrating
Almost.
1 year of our engagement.
I love it. No, I actually wanted to go with John as well, but I just want to talk a little bit more about your intimacy work. I know that so many of like my community members really struggle with actually accessing that. I think two main categories, and obviously there's probably so many more, but one, there's the category where there's a very like typical guarded man who has been really taught, like, for example, I love my husband to death, and this is, he's from a very stoic Russian family. I'm from a very
Yeah.
like emotive Indian family, and neither
Mhm.
is better or worse, but he was very much conditioned to, they don't emote as much. It's just not comfortable
Mhm.
for him. On top of, at the time, the way I feel like a lot of men were raised, if you don't express emotion and it
Mhm.
makes you look weak and blah, blah, blah. And so being vulnerable in the bedroom becomes that then plays into the bedroom, and it becomes then hard
Yes.
and uncomfortable to get that person to soften, and then there's also another layer of, as someone who's Southeast Asian, a lot of Indian and Southeast Asian, there's a lot of shame.
Yeah.
Weirdly, even though
Yeah.
it's like where the Karma Sutra, but there's
I
a
know
lot,
Tantra originated from.
right.
Mhm.
But there's so much shame around
Yeah.
that. And so I wanted to open up the conversation there around like, how does one access intimacy in relationships when they're with men who are potentially, it feels very unsafe to them or uncomfortable?
Yeah. Yeah. Such a beautiful inquiry and question. And I think communication is so key. And like, that sounds kind of cliche when I say it, because everyone's always told me communication is key to, I've heard that since I was a little girl about a
Mhm.
successful relationship, but no one actually taught me how to communicate about sex.
True.
Nobody taught me how to communicate about sex.
No,
And
no.
like, to have conversations where you can feel safe expressing your desires in the bedroom, and also not feel like you have to act upon every desire that your partner has, but just to be in a space of celebrating them and being in acceptance of them also is just cracks open like this whole other piece. Maybe that's not my thing, but I can celebrate that it's your thing. And we have date nights that are centered around feeding your thing, and date nights that are centered around feeding my thing, even if those things are different. There's something called the Erotic Blueprints by Jaya, and that's a great way to understand what feeds your own sexual turn on. And it's very common that partners have different blueprints, and then it becomes like, how can I be in service of your turn on, and how can you be in service of my turn on, even if they're not the same
Mm,
things. And it's rare to have the same exact turn ons as a partner. So just having vocabulary and resources and communication around what creates deeper intimacy for you individually and together is the first step that I think many of us are not
Yeah.
even
Can I
sure.
ask a question about that? So, yeah, let's talk about the erotic blueprints if that's okay. Is that all right?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Could you
I
talk
mean,
about what they are and then how someone could navigate using them?
yes, and I'm not a trained erotic
Yeah.
blueprint coach, but I have the understanding of them through
Mm-hmm.
there's 5 different blueprints,
Mm-hmm.
and so there's a free quiz online that you can take to understand which one yours is. And one blueprint is sensual. So that means that your turn-ons come from ambiance. It's very important to have the lighting, the like scent, the music, like just things that like
Mm,
the ambiance
sensory.
sensory exactly feeds into your sensations. And that often is also like a lot of like more slow and sensual touch. To contrast, another example is the sexual blueprint, which is more of what we see on television. It's like
Mm,
you're just standing around the kitchen and then all of a sudden you're having like wild sex. It's like you get turned on by seeing a naked body. You get turned on by the very like overt sexual things. And
mm,
so if someone is in a partnership and one is sensual and they want the slower, more like sensual turn on, and the other person gets turned on by seeing a breast and just wants to immediately go, then that's where there has to be conversation around, oh wait, I need more turn on, I need more warm up, I need more of this to feel ready to meet you in your sexual blueprint. Another example of a blueprint is kinky. So, kinky is being turned on by the taboo. And kink has this huge world to it. And that is a space that I do tantra practitioner work. And also, there's some kink in that space and also in my personal life. So, kink is this huge world of, and it's anything that gets you turned on by something that's like a little taboo or not socially acceptable. And so that could be a dom sub dynamic, that could be impact play, etc. And there's a whole world of it. So just because 2 partners might get a kinky result in their quiz doesn't mean that they're turned on by the same kink. So again, communicating about what feeds each other's kinks is important. And then another blueprint is energetic. So the energetic is turned on by the space between the foreplay, like everything
mm.
before the body's touch, the sexy like text that you send earlier in the day, the like your partner's about to touch your body and there's 5 inches between your body, between his touch and your body right now. Now there's 4 inches. Now there's 3 inches. Now there's 2 inches. Oh my gosh, I can feel them touching the hair on my arm, but they haven't actually touched me yet. It's turned on by the
The build
energy of
up.
it.
Yeah.
Yes. And when you have an energetic blueprint mixed with a partner who's sexual, like you really have to have some conversations around what turns
Yeah.
each other on. And the final blueprint is the shapeshifter. And so that's one that can play into all the different parts and feels different with when met with different energy.
I love
Yeah.
it. It's like having the wild card in the Uno deck and getting to pick
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Exactly.
Oh my God. So
Exactly.
like how then, let's talk practically, I guess, based on like your tantra work or intimacy work. Like if let's say, so I'm more of a like energy, I think I'm more of an energy, maybe I'm a shapeshifter, but anyway, I need more of a build up and I'm not, although once in a while, I guess I could, but I feel like men oftentimes like aren't as great or they do the same 1 to 3 things and it's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
boring. But then
Yeah.
when you tell that, I feel like, what are some ways that, and also I feel like men, they are egos if you come to them with
Mm-hmm.
certain things. So, what are some ways people could talk about this and then give
Yeah.
tips? Yeah.
Yeah, with a partner, it's treating every day like day one of learning each other's bodies is so
Mm,
important. And I'm on year 6 of my relationship, and sometimes it feels like day one of like of showing him what I like. And there really
mhm.
is a lot of self responsibility and being able to say and advocate for what you desire. And it's this dance because you want to advocate for yourself and your desires and also like detach from it having to be a certain way in order
Mm,
to get there. That's something that I'm constantly sitting with and supporting clients through. It's like, how do we state what we want and ask for it and do that from a place not of demanding or commanding, but of wanting to just treating yourself like the queen that you are, whose desires are
Yes.
worthy of being said and stated. And also honor the partner that's trying really hard, and they will miss the mark, and there will be like where you need to course correct
Learning.
and ask for adjustments and attunements. And it's such an initiation of honoring your body while also like being in respect of this partner who is trying to show up, right? And
Yes. I just have to say, in that piece alone, I think that it's such an important thing to talk about because, in fact, I had a conversation with somebody I was interviewing last week. We were chatting afterwards, and she said to me, I saw a video of you. There was a moment where I had a reel where I was laying down with John and I had John's hand on my heart like this. And I had just asked him to put it there and I was holding it and him just, but I had to specifically say it, but by him holding my heart like that and just cuddling me after I asked him in this like really tight way was like so soothing to me. And she was like, is that something that he does? And I was like, no, I literally asked for it. And I was like, and she was like, oh, almost like that. I never even thought of it. I never even realized that like I could. And I think that we forget that we actually like that people aren't mind readers and that we get to have our needs met and that we need to communicate, just like a whole thing that's forgotten. And I feel like it sounds so basic and duh, but it actually is something that most people are not doing.
yeah.
There's a lot of discomfort. And then it just continues to be this silent, broken space that like, and so I think that being able to, my thought is like framing those conversations with one's partner of letting them know that this is coming from a desire to have more connection and that it's coming from and that you're wobbling through it, it's new to you too, you're trying your best to find words and you're learning
Yeah.
your body and desires too, and can this be an open dialogue, and I want to hear from you too, and like knowing that both of you are just in this exploration together.
Yeah, so beautiful. Like it's really vulnerable and you have to reveal from your heart. It's coming from this desire to connect, right? And
Yes.
to be in connection with this person. And we have been so screwed by the media to think that after the initial honeymoon period, that spark will naturally continue because the deeper that you build a life with somebody, oftentimes like the intimacy wounds come up where like and I'll take ownership that this is my own experience too, is like the more that we're deeply involved in each other's lives, it's like the part of me that feels struck by like the passion and the fire, that part feels harder to access. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really taken a lot of work to, and we've been working with Justin in London for a while as well on continuing to light that match of intimacy. And it involves such an ego death. It involves revealing that like I have parts of myself that feel like because we've been together for so long, this novelty has worn off, and I feel really sad about that. And I want to reinvigorate that. And that's a hard conversation to have. And it's hard to reveal, but so much beauty can come from being honest about what's coming up for you and letting them in on it so that your team building around it versus in isolation. And then that creates more distance because you're just holding all that on your own.
Yes, totally. So many things just came up. So the first thing is, I think when you were speaking about how it's so true. When you're with a partner for a long time, there can become more comfort. You can feel like roommates. It can feel, especially whatever, when you're in parenting and your ship's passing in the night and you're talking about logistics, that doesn't feel sexy all the time. It's just the
No.
reality. However, I think something that's been helpful to me is I think that it's almost like I redefined what hot was because I think for me, when I started to realize that like when John was like doing the dishes or going the extra mile, or like when people are telling me that he's like the dad at the pickup, that's only dad, certain things, I'm like, oh, like
Mm.
that's so sexy to me. Like though the things,
Mhm.
there are certain things that like I don't need you to have a six-pack flexing on the beach. That's not hot to me anymore anyway.
Totally.
But I feel like our we forget, because again, when you mentioned the media, that was a really interesting comment you made, because it is true. It's true that it's almost like we forget, we've started to buy into what the media shows to be what's hot or sexy, or what we've been, that's not actually what's sexy to me. And so that's like it's almost, yes, we can do these things with communication, and also we also get to just pull back and be like, wait, why did I marry this person? Or why am I in relationship with this person? What do I feel drawn to this person about, and how can I realize that's so hot, whatever it is.
Yes, it's about collecting the evidence all around you that your partner is sexy and safe, and so
safe is sexy.
Yeah,
Yes.
totally. And seeing it when he takes the trash out, and seeing it when he picks up the kids at school, and seeing it
as such a turn
everywhere.
on.
And like literally, like letting your body open to that being something that creates turn on in your body, and letting your body feel that. Yeah.
If you ever found yourself wondering, but how do you really navigate that? You're not alone. The most common questions I get from this community aren't just about the tools or the steps, they're about the real behind the scenes journey. So I created The Deep Well, a private space where I share raw personal stories, unfiltered insights, and the deeper lessons I don't always share publicly. It's also where you can send me your personal questions about motherhood, healing, burnout, purpose, relationships, and I'll answer them inside the feed with thoughtful, trauma-conscious guidance, practical suggestions, and any resources I believe could support you. If you're craving more depth, real talk, and real connection, check the show notes. I'd love to see you inside. Yes, I actually think that piece too, I think there is so much, I think there's like shame in lots of ways from accessing your turn on and pleasure. I think there, even, and I might have told you, I can't remember. Let me actually just pause and say, I remember our mutual friend, Stephanie, I think it might have been 20, I don't know, 18. I don't even know, but it was definitely before I was where I am now with respect to this, right. And she had it was during the pandemic, and she had an online women's circle. And I'll never forget her guiding everyone to do like a breast massage. And I was by myself in my home, and it's my own breast. And yet I felt so uncomfortable. And I remember I like tried a little bit. And then at some point, I think I just signed off. And two things happened. One, I was struck by the fact that I'm a mom of 3 that's breastfed all her children, that had home births, and yet I'm uncomfortable touching my own breast in my own home. And I was also struck by how then later and the next day, I have to fix that. How later in the next day, I actually felt such a release of so much lighter. And I had such access to my turn on. I didn't even realize. I was like, why am I so horny? And I realized, I called her and I was like, something happened with this very minor, and I'm intrigued. And so I feel like there was still what's going on here. It was clear that I was shut down from it for so long. And so I just wanted to say, I think that we don't even realize that we are shutting it down, because we're just in the throes. But part of it too could be that we're not even allowing that to come up. We're not giving space for that.
Yes. And you speak to this journey so beautifully, because it really does start with self, right? And connection to self. And there is a true moment of heartbreak and grief when you face and come into pleasure for the first time, because it's you feel the grief for all the times that you haven't been in relationship to your body in an intimate way. And these are vessels of the divine that we are wrapped in for a very short period of time. And so there's this huge, it's we hit a wall of grief when we finally touch into these parts for all the times that we haven't. And that's where the emotional release tools come in, of like feeling, allowing yourself to feel that heartbreak and allowing it to crack you open to receive what is here now, which is connection with your body. So when I work with couples, I often work with each individually on their own self connection to themselves and their own pleasure, and finding
Mm.
their own body, like finding orgasmic energy in their own genitals separately. Because how are you supposed to tell your partner what you want if you don't have that relationship with yourself, which is where most people are. That's where I was just
Yes.
7 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And like also, we never got a toolkit. I don't even know. I didn't even honestly like I have so much growth to do there. But I feel like I don't even feel like I've scratched the surface. And I feel like most of us will probably die not even scratching half the
Yeah.
surface because there's
Yeah.
so much there. And so I think that, yeah. So then having said that, like if we were to, if like people are listening and they're like, okay, like I want to connect with myself. I want to explore what it is that does turn me on. I'm going to take the quiz, but I want to just start to tap into connection with myself and my body. What would you
Mm-hmm.
suggest as like a tip?
Yeah, definitely. Some things that you can do at home is, I know time is hard to come by, but to carve out, even if it's like 15 minutes for you to just feel pleasure in your body. So maybe it's putting on some music that feels really good to you, and start to just touch your body like with the innocence that like almost like a child would be discovering their body for the first time. So it doesn't have to be sexual, it doesn't have to be overtly sensual, just like feeling the sensations of touch on your skin. And this could involve mirror work, right? Is like coming into the mirror and taking yourself in with such reverence and beauty. And one practice that I often guide clients through is taking a mirror, like a compact mirror, and looking at their yoni or their vulva for what is probably the first time that they've looked in maybe a long time, unless there was some medical need to be looking, right? And to take that moment to, yeah, one, be with what comes up, emotional release tools, be with what comes up, and call in the type of relationship that you want to have to this power center that is your genitals, that is your yoni. There's that expression, the body keeps the score. And I believe that it's actually like the yoni that keeps the score. So it's like it's our, and that's the tantra word for vulva or vagina. But yoni is where we store so much baggage and old stories and trauma and pain. And so coming into relationship with that part of us as a ally, as a guide, as a friend, it's like when you make a new relationship with anybody, you have to like date them and learn about them and try to understand them and what brings them joy and what brings them pain. It's like a getting to know process with your own body part that might have been on the back burner.
Yeah, I love that. I want to say that. So I just want to say, I know I once, when I first started doing mirror work, it was after I read Louise Hay's book. And I think I don't remember, it was 2017 or something. And I'll never forget, I was at odds with myself. I was in so much inner pain and I had so much, what's the word? I didn't like the way I looked in the mirror. But after
Mm-hmm.
3 kids initially, I was just not
Mm-hmm.
feeling myself.
Yeah.
And it was really hard, really fucking hard. And I remember really just like knowing that like this continuous shaming was not helping the way I felt. And I had to break it. And I was like, started looking in the mirror and trying to find something I loved about my reflection. And initially, I remember it was so painful, so painful. And it was also so cathartic because it brought everything up and helped me see how much I couldn't feel positively about myself. But then I started to find little things. I focused on like the easiest, like the lowest hanging fruit. And
Mm-hmm.
even if it was like my eyebrows or my lip shape or whatever. And then it just, that positive energy continued to grow. And it was so healing. And now I look in the mirror and I'm like, you're a fucking badass. But back then, but I say that to say that
Yeah.
if it feels confronting, which it may, you're not alone. And it's like that tough when you have to have that tough conversation, but know that this one is only leading to coming home. You're not going to run away from yourself. Like the person, no, you're not going to slam the door on yourself. So I think that it's like, it can be confronting to your point because we have been so disconnected, but it's probably the most healing thing you can do to union with
So
yourself.
true.
Yeah.
So true. And to do it inside a program or with a coach where you can have that support
Oh,
system of
yeah.
normalizing the experience of the pain that can come up in the beginning and like how confronting that is. And like you said, it really is a journey of a homecoming to your body. And, you know, that everyone starts where they start. So wherever you're at,
Yeah. I
varies.
feel like I would love you mentioned, tell me if this is something that in your intimacy work with clients, do you ever touch on that the polarity work that you do that Justin and London do? Because I think that it's almost like very similar. I feel like it would be interesting for us to chat about that because when we were talking before about even just having the conversation, if one person's sensual, one person's sexual, or whatever, one person's more like hardcore, let's just go after it, the other person needs to go slower. It reminds me of that polarity concept that where one person has to be the receiver and one person has to be the like one's the alpha, one's the what are they called? Omega alpha.
Omega.
Yeah. And so the omega is the receiver and the alpha is the dominator. So I guess I think I wanted to talk about that with you because I think it's really helpful that even if you don't understand specifically like what your blueprint is, just feeling into you both can't be calling the shots and you both can't be the receivers because then you can't. Have you done any of that and how anything that you feel like you want to add?
Yeah, London and Justin have been great teachers to me in that work. And so has the work in Desire on Fire with Amy and Ellie. And I remember this one example is coming to me that was shared in Desire on Fire, which is if you want your partner to lead, then like you have to also be receptive to their leadership. And
Ooh.
there's trade-offs that happen in that process. And the example that I want to share is forget exactly the thing, but there was some example where this woman's husband she really wanted him to lead, and dinner was getting ready, dinner was getting on the table, and he was taking a little bit longer to get to the table. And she was sitting there being like, oh, the food is getting cold. The food is going to be like, this meal's going to be ruined. He's taking longer to take care of what he needs to take care of to get to sit down at the table. And like the choice that she had in that moment is to like trust his leadership and guidance and let the food get cold because it actually fuels like her ability to relax and receive into the way he's leading in that
Yes.
moment, and it helps with the polarity of that moment versus she could have made a big stink about it or whatever and been like food's gonna get cold, making it, and then she gets back into leading and she's in a dominating energy around that. And so that's just an example of like
Yeah.
there's trade-offs that are made when you're working with polarity, and it does involve a sense of okay, if you want to receive your partner's leadership, how receptive are you to it? Is your body open to it? Are you open to alchemizing the parts of you that really want to jump in and control? It's
Yes.
such an initiation and journey.
Yes, I think so. Because I think also to your point about are you open to alchemizing those parts? I think that most people aren't aware that I think if you're listening, like if you start to feel when your partner is taking the lead, that like part of you want to get up and say something, you want to critique, you feel your constriction, you feel your heart palpitating, you start to feel sensations in your body where you're just like wanting to react versus slowly respond or slow down. Like that is probably a part of you where that's your trauma response. And so that's a beautiful opportunity for you to both explore how you can use that as an invitation to heal that part of you while also creating that reciprocity and like connection in your relationship and heal. That's probably also a dialogue that's happening in your marriage in other
Mm-hmm.
parts. So it's such
Mm-hmm.
a beautiful way to, if you just like Sarah was saying, like if you just take these bigger concepts of polarity and start to examine when you're when if and then if that part if he's trying to if the other way around, I think it's also important. It's hard for probably men to be receivers. That's
Mm-hmm.
probably really hard. And is there how do would you suggest communicating to a man? Maybe it's would it be like communicating that like there needs to be this reciprocity and that if you're in this one then he has to take this, or how does one communicate so that if a man doesn't feel like you're being told to sit down?
So that a man doesn't feel like he's being told to sit down.
Yeah, because I guess
Okay. I think it starts with choosing like how choosing what the goal is of the relationship. And maybe it is to have a reciprocity, or maybe it is to mostly lean into him leading, right? And to practice your receptivity. And yes, there are always times when that energy is flowing. And like, for example, if like my partner is going through something with emotionally and he needs support, like I'm obviously there to help support and be there for him and step
mm,
into more of that alpha like energy. I try and do it from a feminine way, but there's clear moments when like he needs to be in his own process and resourcing himself because he's going through something. Otherwise, our like the goal of our relationship is to have more polarity where he's in the leadership role and I'm practicing my receptivity. And that doesn't mean that you have to forego your feelings and emotions. So, like for that, like dinner getting cold example, it might sound like I feel nervous that we've prepared this whole meal and now it's going to sit here and get cold. Can I have some help with feeling nervous about this? And see how
mm,
he responds.
yeah.
See how he responds. It's like, it's a different way of being in feminine, like more soft energy, but you're still communicating your desires and
What's coming up?
happening.
Yes. Oh, I love
Mm-hmm.
that. Something that came to me too. I'm going to say this last thing and then I want to move to cycle syncing. But this other thing that came up was in parenting, I find that same polarity energy needs to happen. And it's funny because, like,
Mm-hmm.
meaning, and I guess in all senses, because I feel like there are times where like I'm taking the lead on something with the kids and I ask my husband to step in, but I just want him to be a supportive role to the kids or recept like the softer one for the kids, but he'll double down on what I'm doing. And I feel like they're all like, okay for
Mm-hmm.
me. And so I just
Mm-hmm.
was thinking about that around how this concept is so helpful in so many different ways to ensure that there's like a balanced energetic union. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, wait, and like in
Yeah.
that moment, for example, like when you feel like you're in leadership around something with the kids, and then he comes in, he doubles down with his leadership. If the desire for your relationship is that he like leads with his masculine energy more so, then in those moments, it might be the okay, like he's got this. Maybe like he's got this.
Right. Eyes back.
How do I
Yeah,
and receive the way that he's leading me and the kids right now? And let those
totally.
parts of you soften that felt like they had to be holding all of that yourself.
Yes, totally. That was so good.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that. I love that. It doesn't also have, to your point, that just opened up like the rigidity around it, like doesn't have to end the way it started. Like you can flex.
Yes, exactly.
So
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
then the last thing I want to go into with you, or the third thing, not last, but is cycle syncing, because I know
Mm-hmm.
that you've always been really into the working with the woman's body, but do you
Mm-hmm.
want to talk a little bit about your experience in cycle syncing and how it served you?
Yeah. Oh, let's see where to begin with
Or
that.
if you want to say something else, that's fine too.
Yeah, I think the moment of my life where cycle syncing like really became my life was when I do tantra work, but I do marketing and I support mission driven brands with marketing. So I was working for this amazing company called Dayloon, and it was a menstrual health brand. So the whole company was cycle synced in that
Mm,
all of us knew we knew where we were in each other's cycles. We talked openly on, I'm on day 26, like my hormones have dropped to an all-time low. I need support getting this project over the finish line because I have nothing in my
Oh,
tank. And then another person would chime in and be like, I'm ovulating. I have all the energy in the world. Let me take this project where it's at and
oh,
I'll get it over the finish line. You support yourself as you head into your bleed. And so it was literally like the practice of the company to be
incredible.
in support. Yeah. Yes.
That is wild and incredible. I know for me, so it is, and I'm sure it'll just dovetail into what it is for you. But for me, as like I'm a self-projected projector in human design, which is like more of the subconscious of a reflector, but let's like less than 1% of the population. So I have no energy. And I have three kids.
Wow.
I don't have an energy center. I don't have a sacral, and I don't have energy there. And I have three children. And so I have always I feel like my whole life has been learning how to work with my body and not burn out because of the pace of which I was just raised with and all of that. And so when I learned that through cycle syncing, I could really leverage my energy better and experience
Mm-hmm.
less burnout, work with my hormones better. I really changed everything to be in alignment with that of to the best of my ability. And I feel like it's been transformational. I feel as though even just having the intuitive awareness of, listen, obviously life is not like perfect. It's not like a grid where everything's perfect, but I know generally speaking, like I'm not going to want to do very much social interactions a week before my period or anything.
Mm-hmm.
These things are going to feel hard. I'm going to want to pare down my workouts in certain ways, whatever. But I think that through understanding like that our bodies are not meant to work at the same cadence, the same
Mm-hmm.
cadence every single day, 24 hours a day, the way that a male's body is, and that we're in a society that is structured in that way. But it's our responsibility to really learn our own cycles and learn how to work with the existing systems to create more flow in our own lives. And have you really continued to adopt that in the way that you live since Daloon?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Mama, imagine if healing your stress patterns could change everything, because it can. Whether it's reacting in ways you don't recognize, people pleasing, or overthinking, these patterns stem from unresolved trauma stored in your body. They create chronic stress, impacting your health, relationships, and how you show up in life. That's why I created the Align and Thrive Workbook, a free 5-day mini training designed to help you heal at the root. You'll learn what trauma is and how it's showing up in your body and life. You'll be guided through a proven 5-step process to heal and rewire these patterns, shifting from reactive and overwhelmed to aligned and in flow. You'll get a comprehensive workbook filled with practices and journal prompts to help you implement this work starting now. It's truly transformational. It's what I wish I had when I was struggling on my journey, and it's completely free. Download your Align and Thrive workbook for free today. Head to www.mishavayner.com/workbook and let's begin this journey together. You can also click on the link in the show notes and grab it today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like my cycle calendar, like is my calendar. Like it's overlaid over my calendar and it's how I make decisions about what I do each part of the month. And so I know that, my follicular and ovulation phase is a great time to be like client facing, to create content, to be in brainstorm energy, to be in creation energy, to be forward thinking about what I want for the future. And an ovulation, really like social and being like out and public speaking, those types of things happen in that phase. And then as I move into luteal, which is the like commonly known as like PMS part of our cycle, that's where it's more inward, it's more reflective, it's more solo driven activities if I can help it. And like life doesn't always work that way, right? So it's also cutting ourselves a break when there are commitments that we have to show up to in that time frame, and just acknowledging like, hey, I'm going to feel like different showing up to this event than maybe I showed up to it 2 weeks ago when I was ovulating and everything was butterflies, and giving yourself some slack with that and grace and a wide berth.
Yes, I love that. A couple of things. I think that number one, I think it's really cool. Things that I found to be really interesting were like when you were mentioning, like in the ovulation phase, you like actually look prettier. Like you just, you know how
Yes.
sometimes like you're wondering, like, why do I just, no matter what, look like shit
Yep.
at this time, but you look prettier. So, like, good to know that it's actually like your hormones that are like, and then it's interesting because I have a client who actually just, and I have a membership, and she left a message this morning about how she was like, feeling really wonky energetically and saying, how she's just feeling really extremely depleted. And she was like, it's 2 days after my period. And I felt this way 2 days after my period last month. And she was saying she was really depleted. I wonder if it's cycle related. And I was like, actually, what's interesting is that after your period, you actually should feel much more alive. But the interesting thing to notice, she moved houses 2 weeks ago. And so I was like, you have not been able to winter the past 2 weeks. Like you've not been able
Yeah.
to rest. You've been moving, you have
Yeah.
a child. And so you've pushed past your body's capacity. So that probably is why. But we get to now you have that awareness of instead of shaming ourselves that we didn't allow our bodies to rest during that time. We just get to know I've done a lot. Now I get to restore, do my best to
Yeah.
like. And so I just think that it's really
Yeah.
helpful, even if you can't be perfect with it, just having the awareness of, oh, that's why I feel that way. Sometimes we just need that
Yeah.
awareness to feel better about it.
Yes,
you know?
absolutely. And yeah, it's so true that when we've packed it all in, like that we'll the rest in the winter, like it has to happen eventually. So it might
Right.
happen off cycle, like meaning not while you're bleeding, it could happen in the days after or at any point really. But like
Yeah.
we have to come into parts of phases of rest. It's just our bodies aren't meant to be operating at 100 every day, all day. Yeah. A
Well,
really
and
great book
yeah,
is
no, go
have
ahead.
a really great book on this is Do Less by Kate Northrup. It's all about thinking to the cycles and honoring like the fertile void periods too, which is like when we are like not supposed to be creating. We're supposed to be integrating. We're supposed to be like reflecting. We're supposed to be in winter.
Yeah. So first of all, I have her do less planner. I got it like a long time ago and I
Yeah.
loved it. I remember reading Elisa Vitti's book.
Mhm.
I forget what
Flow.
it's called. Flow, is it called Flow?
Flow living.
The
Yeah.
flow, the flow. So yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway, but yeah, I think that something that's really important to state is that, okay, so I got in this conversation with actually a neighbor who was misunderstanding what I was saying in that there people that when it's not fully this isn't fully explained, people assume that we're saying that women aren't as powerful and aren't able to do as much, but in fact it's not the case. It's actually that we actually are able to, we're more powerful, but
Mhm.
we're just not, when we allow ourselves to operate in alignment with the phases of our cycle, we're actually able to yield more bang for our buck in the respective areas of productivity versus creativity versus whatever, while also thriving in our well-being. And I think that there's a misconception that it's, oh, we're saying like you slow down because you can't do as much, but it's quite the opposite
Mhm.
because and so I think that needs to be known because I think if you are a mom or a woman that's listening and that it's burnt out and is feeling like you just can't keep up with the 9 to 5 grind or all of the things, like it's because we weren't, the way it's set up is not for us, but you can reevaluate. And I think that some ways you can, even if you can't, like we were saying, like if you can't structure certain aspects that are just because it's part of your life right now, look at what you do have flexibility over, like your social calendar, your kids' calendar, maybe, or your family things. And yeah, so I don't know. Are there tips that you would have for someone who's really looking to do it in a very like just tap into doing cycle syncing? What would you suggest?
Mhm. Yeah, I think like it does require a sense of doing things against the norm a bit because our whole world is constructed in to adjust to like the 9 to 5 or the having the same amount of energy every day. So just acknowledging and beginning with the acknowledgement that like the world is not going to make cycle thinking easy or happen for you. Like we have to advocate for ourselves in a way that might look or be perceived as just being against the grain and different. That might
Mhm.
look like scheduling a massage during your workday and just knowing that that is going to give you so much more than whatever you were had otherwise planned in that time frame. Like the like trusting the regenerative power that happens
Mm.
when we rest and when we prioritize ourselves, and just trusting that the payout of that, and that there's a learning curve with that too. Let's say
Yeah.
you start scheduling a massage 1 month during your luteal phase, and there's, is this okay, is this right, just letting yourself have all those feelings and then just keep up with it, whatever your self-care thing is, and trusting that there's payout over time of building both self-trust, that like investing in taking care of you and your vessel is gonna have the payout.
100%. I think that's the self-trust piece, I think, is so important because I think even like I got my period on Monday, I think it was, and I just knew that and I had sick kids home last week. So initially I like forgot I was getting my period Monday and I was like, oh, next week I'll be at it. And then this week I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, but you're actually not feeling like you was feeling a little bit more obviously tired and less energized. But knowing that my body always cycles back when I let it by taking this time now and trusting this time now, I'm going to have the energy later. But by pushing through it now, I'm going to get garbage out and also feel
Mm-hmm.
like shit later. Like,
Yeah, it's the same as the emotional thing that we were talking about earlier with our anger and our rage, that like if we bring acceptance to it, then oftentimes it allows, like acceptance is everything. It allows everything to like flow and trust. So with cycle thinking, when we can bring acceptance to what our bodies need in the moment, then it also allows us to trust that we can flow back into productivity, creativity when that is true. And
yes.
trusting that, like, even if you have a huge long to-do list, if you need to take an hour to sip your tea and reflect or sit outside in nature, that hour is going to have, like, giving yourself that and being in acceptance of that. It's the gift of trusting your energy and trusting how it flows, and
Yes. And
it
I
will
think
always
it
come back.
is yeah, I think it's such an important piece to even get into the space of being so permission giving, which is something that we all, I feel like, had to learn. I know I like that initially I was
Mhm.
like, oh, like it's so many, it can be so jarring when that isn't how you were raised and that wasn't the that you
Mhm.
initially got. And so to really actually there were times a long time ago where I used to like literally call John in the middle of the day and be like, I'm watching TV for just 10 minutes. Is that okay? And I'd be like, I need you to tell me it's okay because
Yes.
it felt so shameful to watch TV on a Wednesday at noon
Yeah,
as a provider or whatever. And so I
totally.
think that it really is a deconditioning process too of reminding like the world won't come to an end. Like it will be okay, even though every part of us feels the opposite because of how we've been conditioned. And I think another thing is that I can just hear there's because I have had some conversations like recently around this with people that, aren't quite there, that are working in corporate America, that are like, I just don't have that ability. I don't have that agency. I don't work from home. I don't. And what I want to say is just allow yourself to just be a little curious around what could be possible. It may not be the corporate job that
Mhm.
you're ready to explore right now. And it may not even be, it could just be like, can I don't know, give myself like a nighttime like skincare regimen for 10 minutes that feels really delicious and like light a candle and do some box breathing or so, I don't know, something. Are there
Absolutely.
something I could start small?
Yeah, when I was working at Amazon a while back, and I just started to interface with this work, and like I would go to the bathroom and I would put my headphones in and listen to a song for a minute in the stall, and that would just help me. I just would move a little bit and feel my body, and
Yes.
that can happen in the workplace. Even whatever your ritual is, maybe you go to the bathroom and you have a hand cream that you really love, and you just take the minute to like really like massage that hand cream into your hand and know that's for you and feeding you. It can be smaller pieces that happen integrated into your 9 to 5.
I love that because I think number one, anything that you're doing, whether it's rubbing the hand cream, listening to the song, or even if it's like something even more basic, like just being present in that experience is the key of releasing for that like 1 minute you're putting the cream on, like allowing yourself to actually feel the sensations and be in that. And even if you just like for 60 seconds are feeling those sensations and allowing yourself to be present in that is really deeply restorative to your nervous system if do what you have capacity for. But I think the other thing that's coming up for me that is like reminding us all that like we do actually have more agency than we think. I think a lot of the things that we tell ourselves we don't is because of what we believe from the past. But if you need to start asking for, like you were talking at the beginning, if we don't even know our desires, how are
Mhm.
we even going to get them? So before even like maybe just one thing could be just starting to tap into what actually is best for you, just building awareness around it. Did it feel really exhausting to go in 5 days and do that commute? Is there a conversation about working from home in the future?
Mhm.
Could you just make
Mhm.
a mental note for a future conversation? And
Mhm.
maybe, but building the awareness around what's happening in the first place is helpful, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like maybe there's a ritual that you do every first day of your bleed and you go into work like an hour late that day or something. Just something that you feed yourself first.
Yeah. Oh my
Mhm.
God, I love all of these tips. I
Mhm.
feel like I could talk to you for another hour, but I know that we have places to go, things to do. I am so grateful for all of the insights and tips you've given us around all these things. Before we plan to close, are there any things that you want the listeners to know about any of these three pillars that we missed before that emotional alchemy, about intimacy, about cycle syncing that you think I missed?
I think that we didn't fully get into like the piece around shame with our bodies, but just like
Yes.
yeah, the whole like and we did at the same time because it's relatable to just like being really gentle with yourself on where you're at.
Mm,
And we inherited shame from our parents, from society, from so many different places. So just being really like aware of what's theirs and what's yours and what you no longer feel like available to carry and what you're ready to release of is the start of the journey. So like doing some reflection on what messages you got about your sexuality as a child. And most of us received something that was like, that's shameful to touch yourself, or that's
mm,
shameful to anything really.
yeah.
So just being on that gentle exploration of like where some of this came from and what type of relationship you want to bring in to your body. And it is such a huge body of work, of course, but yeah, just like being in the inquiry of where you're like ready to release and alchemize the shame. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that because I also think that we don't even realize it, but in addition to the shame that we have, I think this as moms, those that are listening that are moms, we're like energetically passing that on as well. And like I feel like that was something that I feel has been really helpful in me just bringing awareness to. I think like like a silly example, I know that I from day one, and I know that we're talking more intimacy, but I'm referring to menstruation, but I guess
Mhm.
all one and the same. But I from day one, I've always, and we're very like open here, but like my house, but I've been open with like my menstruation, my cycle, my with my boy and my girls. They see it. I talk
Mhm.
about it. I've never said the word ew. I've never been grossed out by it,
Great.
never complain about it. And I feel like I did have another mom friend, like when the kids were little, say to me like, "Oh, my daughter said that Drew was talking about periods and whatever," and I was like, "Okay." Like I don't see. I think we need to really normalize. It's such a beautiful, natural thing, and I feel as though there's so much stigma around the things that are the things that like create us. And it's
Totally.
so I really think that even us shifting our own mindset helps us feel less shame and then give off, then break that cycle of passing on the shame to others too, our kids and
Yeah.
community. And
Yes, I just got off of a retreat for a week and it was all about sacred sexuality and like being in reverence to these temples that are our
yeah.
bodies and treating them as such, both ourselves and even like having other people like look at your body with reverence. And it was so beautiful.
So beautiful.
And I thought, wow, what if this was the training that all like adolescents went through in their rite of passage to
Oh,
adulthood, to be in reverence with themselves and know that their body is like this natural flowing river of
yes.
life. And
A
yeah, it
hundred
feels really important to bring this to the
really
children. Yeah.
important. And I feel like that is what needs to be happening. It's so backwards. I
Mm-hmm.
really feel that like these conversations and this connection to like, I feel like self-love's not the right word, but like this
Mm-hmm.
deep connection to loving ourselves really should be the core focus in schools. Like, really, I
Yeah.
love that. I would love for you to share with the audience. Actually, one last question. I wanted to ask this
Yeah.
one question. What's lighting you up right now and helping you feel aligned and in flow? It could be anything from a favorite like routine, mindset shift, book you're loving, anything.
Right now, I am in love with the range of my life right now. Just like
Mm.
pretty wild to be in like experiencing so many different things at once. And like, I'm really working on opening to receiving it all. And what I mean by that is, and I'm sure everyone has points of relativity of having so many different experiences, but I do tantra work and I do hands-on yoni healing and body work and emotional release with folks. And then I'll get onto my laptop and support these mission-driven brands with like marketing causes that I really care about and that drive me. And my partner and I are in this beautiful exploration of, it feels like day one of our sexuality, year 6, and I'm starting to host these like sex positive events here in Austin, and it just feels so good to expand, to hold all of these different parts of myself. And so that's what I'm bringing into my own self pleasure practice of getting off on the range of life. And that might look different for everybody in different ways, but like, how do we let it all turn us on?
Oh my God. I am so lit up hearing that because I feel like it's so gorgeous to see you in this space. Like you really are leveraging like all your gifts in all the different ways and you're so in flow and you're able it's like it's all working so beautifully. I'm so happy for you. You're just
Thank you.
remarkable. No, truly, I'm so happy for you.
If you
Oh,
only, I know you do know parts of it, but it's been such a messy process of getting to own my
yeah.
gifts in different ways. So I appreciate your reflection, and also like it's that life is such a beautiful mess and mystery in that way.
Totally. I love that too, because I feel like there is such a it's everyone always sees like the highlight reel and oh, she's doing all these things. It was
Mm,
so, but yeah, you did work so hard. And the thing of it is you always lead with your heart and integrity. And
mm,
that's what I feel like
mm,
there was just no way for you to not be here. Oh,
mm.
I'm so
Thank
happy for
you.
you.
Thanks for
Um,
having me.
Oh my God. Thank you for being here and for chatting with
Mm.
me and exploring in all these places. And I would love for you to tell the audience anything else that you want them to know about you and your work and where they can find you and what any offerings or things that you have for them.
Sure. Yeah. What
Yeah.
I'm really energized by right now in my offering is men and women's sexuality coaching and then couples sexuality and
Oh,
intimacy coaching. And right now I'm designing like a couples retreat package for clients of mine who are actually going to fly out here to Austin to have a 3-day intensive type of retreat with me where it will be like them learning each other's bodies for the first time, and they've been together for 15 years. And so like really inviting in that freshness of energy at any point in a relationship, and like the ego death and the humbleness to start like it's day one at any point in your relationship. I've been working with that couple individually for many months, and so we're bringing it all together, and I'm
oh,
excited about that offering and being able to do couples work. We've all been doing it on Zoom thus far, so whether you're in Austin or far away, there's a platform and a place for it. And then I do offer in-person work in Austin. So that looks like moving through anything that is feeling stuck, any heartbreak, pain. I do heart de-armoring, yoni de-armoring, and just overall general emotional release from the body, from genitals, and from stuck energy. And that body of work has been like the greatest honor and most sacred journey of my life, to work like intimately with these really delicate and powerful parts of our bodies, to release and to bring them back to home and wholeness. Yeah, that's been the journey. And you can find me on Instagram at Sarah Chizek, and anywhere. I have a website too where you can book a discovery call with me if you want to talk about coaching. Yeah.
Yay! I'll put all the stuff in the show notes. Thank you so much. You were so generous with your time and your heart and your wisdom. And I just loved reconnecting with you and seeing you glowing.
Oh,
Yay!
love you too, Misha. Thank you.
All right, friends, what'd you think? I really hope you enjoyed listening and got value from this episode of Your Well Life. If you did, it would mean the world to me if you could leave a review so we can spread the word to more mamas who can benefit from this content. It's truly my deepest mission to help as many mamas out there feel empowered, aligned, and in flow in their bodies and lives through this podcast. And even just sharing with one friend who you think can benefit helps. Want more from me? Well, then don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you can get notified each time a new episode drops. Oh, and make sure to get on my newsletter list where I send out weekly emails to support, nourish, and inspire you. And follow me on Instagram, where I'm the most active and share behind the scenes of my day-to-day life and insights I have along the way. I'm at Misha Vayner. I'm truly so grateful that you chose to spend your time with me, and really hope to have you join along next week. Same time, same place. Bye for now.